Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of November the 20th, 2024. Welcome to Elmer Council. Begin with a moment of reflection and respect. Thank you. Item 3, confirmation of the agenda. Resolution.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of November 20th, 2024 by adding the following items. Barb Forsyth delegating regarding the library expansion project, Cynthia Grant delegating regarding the Integrity Commissioner report, and correspondence from Helen Reed, Sherry Patterson, and Roberta Wilson, and co-signers regarding the Integrity Commissioner report.
Have a mover and seconder. Councillor Chapman and Deputy Mayor Barber. Any additions or comments? Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question regarding item 6.1.3 that was added to the agenda. It is in relation to 5.1.1. So my question is, for logic and for context, can those items be moved to the associated report to have that all that information together in one?
Certainly, no problem. Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carried, thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Yes, Councillor Desrosiers.
In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I, Councillor Desrosiers, have a pecuniary interest with respect to Item 5.1.1, Report of the Integrity Commissioner, Robert Swayze. I therefore declare a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof as the following. The report relates to my remuneration as a councillor. Therefore, I agree not to vote on any question in respect of this matter.
Very well, thank you. Number 5, delegations and public meetings. The first delegation is from Robert Swayze, the Integrity Commissioner. I think I'll go right to Robert to start with. Can you hear us okay, Robert?
Yes, I can, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be very brief. I can be brief because this report is simply about the crass behavior of Councillor Desrosiers in 2 meetings. The report expresses no opinion on her politics or on her opinions. It has also left out her postings on social media, which were included in the complaints that I received. I guess the offense is there's really 2 offenses. One has already been dealt with back in the council meeting of December the 6th, 2023. At that time, she called the mayor a liar in a loud voice. On my recommendation, I did a report about this, and on my recommendation, council suspended 30 days of her salary. In the October 2nd meeting, she yelled at the mayor, calling him a very scared little man, and some other insults. This was not on video, but I had 4 identical descriptions of her outburst. The report refers to 3 complaints, and I have to advise council that in fact I had 4 complaints. I seem to have missed one or lost it. It is my opinion that her behavior amounts to harassment under the code. And I'll read the section of the code that I'm dealing with. It's entitled Not to Engage in Harassment, and it's Part C. In accordance with the human rights, members shall not expose anyone to conduct representing harassment. Harassment includes engaging in a course of vexatious comment or conduct that is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. And I find that certainly her outburst qualified as contrary to the code of conduct. And I have recommended to council in the report a penalty of the maximum, a penalty of 90 days suspension of pay. So Mayor, that completes my submissions. I'll take questions from members of council or staff. I won't take questions from the residents, but I understand a group will be speaking on this matter after me, and I would request that I be allowed to respond to the deputation that's following me. Thank you very much.
Very well, thank you very much. We'll begin with, I guess if there's any questions from council, first of all. I know there is a delegation from Cynthia Grant regarding the same thing, but are there any questions for Mr. Swayze at this point? I don't see any questions. I would like to move, before we look at any vote on this matter, I would like to allow Cynthia Grant to make her presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Cookett and councillors, and also the Integrity Commissioner. Of note, I'll begin by referring people to the extended editorial by John Houston in this week's paper surrounding the cost and rationale behind integrity commissioners and their role in governance. And I'll just, all of you, I would encourage to read it. Mr. Houston ends with, "It is an expensive solution to a picayune issue paid for with the money of innocents," that would be the taxpayers. "It has become the fashionable solution to a manufactured problem that does nothing save to increase the cost of government and the density of bureaucracy, just the opposite of what taxpayers want." I only read that myself today, but I think it's quite relevant. So weeks ago, in a private conversation with Mayor Cookett, I made the case that citizens do not want time and money wasted on an investigation by the Integrity Commissioner. He said it was out of his hands since others were pursuing the complaint. So now I reluctantly speak, I only requested today, on behalf of a broad community of citizens who have told me that they are shocked by the pursuit of this and object to the harshness of the penalty. This ranges from the Warnocks, Bob is here today, Barb was also in touch with me, to a group known as the Merry Widows, who are really quite a force in the community, volunteering their time to tend gardens. I know Councillor Oslach knows many of them. And they contribute so much. Their letter to the editor appears in this morning's Aylmer Express, and some of them have sent in a letter which is attached to your agenda. I am honored to represent them. I also appear because for years I was the lead consultant for a group on projects to address equity issues related to gender, race, and employment equity. The Ministry of the Attorney General contracted us to present and educate justices of the peace and Crown attorneys on the ways in which the legal system operated with race and gender biases. And the Ministry of Health commissioned us to launch a province-wide campaign among their staff on areas of employment equity. And this is, after all, a workplace issue, and it is very much one where gender is a primary feature. The offending interaction, a rather benign comment as insults go, and I shall return to that later, was the culmination of a series of events related to Councillor Desrosiers requesting that Council embrace a program for mentorship for young women. I will not detail this since the editor of the Aylmer Express did such an excellent job in explaining that it should have been a no-brainer, and I believe I quote him. Councillor Desrosiers herself has acknowledged that mentorship would have been helpful for her. She is committed, speaking at the high school, and encouraging greater female participation in the community and in governance. It is such an irony that the council is demonstrating that politics are a brutal gamesmanship played by overly strict rules with enforcers who utilize the rules with force. After all, we do have government whips. In this story, social media played a role due to the Facebook comment which alleged misogyny related to the topic. This post by someone else close to, but not the councillor, led to events where at council, Councillor Desrosiers was lectured on protocols related to council behavior by the mayor. This was done without naming her, but anyone following the case knew that she was being reprimanded. I think Mayor Cookett attempted neutrality and was noticeably nervous as he defined misogyny and spoke extensively on the topic. Councillor Desrosiers wished to reply. Oh, how she wished to reply to those earlier comments. And that's been noted in the newspaper that it was visible that Councillor Desrosiers wished to reply. But no, the meeting adjourned precipitously, abruptly, despite the chair being aware that Councillor Desrosiers wanted to speak. The door was slammed in her face. She was silenced and frustrated. That is when she made her remark, in frustration at being unable to defend herself. Now that comment has landed her a recommended docking of 3 months' pay. The comment does not merit the penalty. Come on, we all know that. It's like a schoolyard spat, and somebody brings in the cops. And I think that's similar to what John Houston has talked about in his editorial. Is it because she insulted the mayor by calling him little man? A reference to his height. Now, I've warned Mayor Cookett I'm going to make the following comment. My guess is that the Honourable Mayor Cookett resolved any issues surrounding his height long ago. Thank you for laughing, because it's intended that way. She did not use an insult that would constitute a form of workplace harassment. She did not name call based on his religion, his sexuality, or anything else. Did the three people who raised this to the level of the Integrity Commissioner wish to protect him? Really? From a young, outspoken female councillor? The mayor holds an enormous status and power in the town. He is the proverbial big fish in a little pond. I didn't use the metaphor that they like in Bayham because it has an untoward word in it. Some of you may know it. Workplace harassment takes into account the power relations of those involved. So, look at this room for a moment. From a gender equity perspective, there is an immediate problem. At the front, elevated, are the wielders of power. My friend, who is in the room, recently said to me, Cynthia, council is set up like a ship with the three powerful men across the front of the bow of the boat, steering, and flanking them are more men. Where are the women? Holding on, the women are in the stern. It's the kind of thing that when an equity analysis is done of workplaces, these things are flagged. So when we consult the legal system, when we did a consultation for the legal system, we were naming the power of a sea of white faces, and that's what it was termed at the time, dominating the courtroom. People were being encouraged to address that, to understand that it was intimidating for a young First Nations person to walk into a courtroom and not see any representation from his or her community. Elmer Council and staff need to recognize that the world of politics is no longer genteel. Witness the insults to Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her an idiot, questioning her racial identity and insulting her based on that. In parliaments around the world, insults are hurled and people are asked to apologize, not to lose 3 months of pay and be shamed so severely. This does seem to be another step in what appears to be a systematic and systemic, I will say, attack intended to marginalize Councillor Desrosiers. I remind you that for many of us, Councillor Desrosiers is the age of our own children. I would defend my daughter from this ongoing attempt to silence her, and I hope someone else would do the same for mine. One of the Merry Widows says, "Just watch their faces when she speaks." This is referring to council. "Just watch their faces when she speaks. They roll their eyes. It's so obvious." It's that kind of dismissive behavior that has really come to kind of be a part of the treatment that I think has really made Councillor Desrosiers a person who is now defensive. She has, I'm going off book now, I better be careful. But many of us think that she raises good questions, and in fact, Mayor Cookett agreed with me when I said as much. So, I'm going to read an excerpt from the letter to the editor from some of the Merry Widows. "What's so wrong with women mentoring other women? It is better to teach than to criticize. We got the vote in 1918, but we're still fighting for our place in society and still butting up against patriarchy. We feel that Councillor Desrosiers has been very unfairly treated." I shall now ask those present who are able to stand in support of Councillor Desrosiers to do so. Now, I will ask, what are you all afraid of? Why pursue punitive measures for a comment that hardly merits a response? We ask Council to please reject the recommendation of the Integrity Commissioner. After all, what message are you sending to young women who might consider politics? We ask that you stop the madness and stop wasting taxpayer monies on this. At the very least, defer the matter and seek mediation. We want to see this playground bullying stop and Council to address the serious concerns of the community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grant. Mr. Swayze, you did mention in your talk that you would like to answer any mentions by delegations or council. Did you have anything in response to this delegation first?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm going to be very brief, but I make no comment on whether the province was right in making the Integrity Commissioner and Code of Conduct mandatory. But that's the fact, and that's why people are entitled to complain to the Integrity Commissioner. But I just make this point. No council should be required to put up with this schoolyard or behavior. It's over the top and it shouldn't be allowed. I have many councils that work together. They disagree, they have great debates, but they don't get offensive like Councilor DeRosier. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swayze. Since much of the comments that Ms. Grant made was concerning the mayor, me, I'd like to have a little bit of a response to this. This situation is not about me. It really isn't about me. It's not about equity either. It's really about the integrity of the workplace. It is. If I had said these things to me, to somebody else, if I had said these things in a moment of pique, which Ms. Grant was talking about, I would have been on the phone to apologize the very next day to whoever I said it to, because I said it in anger or I said it because I was miffed at something, and that would have been the end of it. I mean, calling me little or an old man, I've been little for a long time. I've been an old man for a little while as well. It's a long time since I was 65. But this is really not about a little old man or a scared little old man. I've been those. It is about those kinds of put-downs that are unacceptable in the workplace. It's about the overall integrity and culture in the workplace. What kind of behavior are you willing to overlook again and again? Is it okay to belittle fellow workers? Maybe belittle is not the right word. Is it okay to, be mean? Demean is the word I mean. Demean fellow workers by calling them misogynist in social media just because they did something that you don't agree with. All of a sudden they become misogynist. I think we should take more notice of what words mean. Misogynist means a very serious thing about hating women. None of us hate women. None of us have contempt for women. None of us in this council have rolled our eyes when Councilor DesRosiers speaks. We have treated her as an equal. We have not called her any names. We have not used social media to say anything about her. We are entitled in this workplace, like any workplace, and workplace has been expanded to any online input dealing with workers. We're entitled to safety and respect and dignity. Our code of conduct specifies it. How do you feel about coming to work when what you say is reviled on social media by your colleague? What do you do about a workplace about to become an unwelcome place to work? And this is our workplace. Council is our workplace. This room is our workplace. And what is said during council or after council is still our workplace. It is not just stuff that is said in council that becomes prone to, the kind of contract we have with ourselves. So really, yes, this has kind of gotten blown away. And it's gotten blown away because it's not stopping. The use of social media to demean other councilors is unacceptable. The use of social media to continue fighting the will of council after a decision is made, the use of social media to keep fighting that as a colleague is unacceptable. Is that the way you want council to be? Is to make decisions and then all of a sudden, one of the council members decides that they're going to keep fighting the decision that was made. Those were my comments. That's what my comments were about, is that particular thing. The fact that she used school place language, yes, I kind of agree, Ms. Grant, it's not a big thing. I've been called worse things, but it still is something that should not be happening in the workplace at all. That's what this is about. It's not the gender card. There's a lot of history here. And please understand this. This is not an isolated incident, nor is it the second time. Besides accusing me of harassment, intimidation, bullying, lack of integrity on 5 occasions in this workplace, right here, she has also called me a misogynist on social media. She was part of a long YouTube broadcast in which she harangued against this town and the council that did things to her. And quite coyly, I'm going to talk here, 6 months after this council began, Councillor Desrosiers called a meeting because she didn't agree with something that I was doing with council. And during that meeting, she says, looking at me, she said, "Don't worry, I won't have you fired." This last set of incidents, she talks about slurs against council members, slanders of misogyny, is part of a continuous trashing of council. This is not something that should go on. I really want to welcome Councillor Desrosiers back to council. Really do. She has a lot to give here, but this stuff has to stop, please. Sorry, I went on longer than I thought it would. Are there other comments that people would like to make? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to address the recent accusations suggesting that this council is anti-woman and silencing her voice. Let me be very clear. These accusations are both unfounded and misleading. I am in agreement with the recent Integrity Commission's finding. This behavior not only disrespected the mayor and council, but also created an intimidating and uncomfortable environment for others present. Such conduct is not becoming of a councillor, and nor should it be condoned nor under any circumstances. As members of this council, we have a duty to serve our community with professionalism, respect, decorum. Attempts to degrade this council, both in person and online, are counterproductive and damaging to the integrity of our work. This council must be committed to acting in the best interest of our community. We strive to operate with transparency to the extent that legal and privacy considerations allow. I sit on this council as a woman, and I categorically reject the notion this council seeks to silence women. My experience here during my past 6 years, this is my second term, have been the opposite. My questions are heard, my ideas are discussed, and often they are implemented. This council is collaborative, not dismissive, and I have always felt respected and valued. Recent behaviors of accusations do not align with the professionalism expected to an elected official. These actions take away from the important work we are here to do. By allowing this type of dialogue to continue, we undermine the work of this council that must change. Moving forward, I am hopeful that can return to focus on the issues that truly matter to our community. Let us work together with respect and professionalism our roles demand, setting an example of leadership and collaboration for the people we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Barber?
Thank you, Your Worship. What I am hoping for is the day when council can address the matters of the town on behalf of its residents without the threat of hateful, demeaning, or derogatory statements by Councillor Desrosiers or by her husband, known on social media as Tyler Thomas. Let's take a moment and review how the Integrity Commissioner gets involved. Council has the ability to internally resolve inappropriate behavior or actions by any council member. When reviewing the first matter earlier, council as a whole agreed to close the matter if Catherine offered a simple apology. Catherine refused to do so. There is no reason to suggest that this time would be any different. The Integrity Commissioner is an independent source assigned if there is an impasse. After the circulation of tonight's agenda last week, I was considering accepting a lesser suspension of Catherine's pay, but by her attacking council in the interim shows to me that there is no degree of empathy within her personality. Nothing is ever her fault. Catherine does not understand or appear to care about the code of conduct. Apparently, it does not apply to her. For her to blame council for spending more than $30,000 for 2 Integrity Commissioner reports about her behavior is solely on her shoulders. To blame council for the expenditure is like a motorist vehicle hitting a tree and blaming the tree for the accident. Periodically, people suggest to me that the town should operate like a business. I'll ask all of you, what would happen to you at your work if you said to others what Catherine says about our council members? Consistent negative comments about council by anyone does not bode well for the town. Constructive dialogue is encouraged. Bring your ideas forward, but don't harass and demean others if they don't agree with you.
Anyone else? Councillor Rai.
Thank you. I find this situation an unfortunate one. I do not believe that any of this was necessary nor helpful. And if anyone here believes that this was going to have a positive outcome, they are delusional. People disagree. It is a factor in life that we all have to deal with on a regular basis. But our job is to find the middle ground as elected adults. I do not think we need to use the commissioner whenever a councillor shares an opinion or tries to talk. Not only is it a waste of taxpayers' money, but a waste of time, energy for everybody. It is too bad that a table of adults took a disagreement and blew it up to this level, instead of having a simple conversation between who or whom disagreed. Yes, Councillor Desrosiers was a bit hot after the meeting when she was excused without a chance to speak, but who wouldn't be? I truly believe anyone in this situation would want a chance to defend themselves. I think we all need to stop, take a minute, and figure out how we can move forward from this unnecessary drama that has filled the room and refocus on how to better our community. The recent behavior of this council brings embarrassment to our town. I'd also like to add, I'm disappointed that not one council member or staff had the decency to give me a heads up on this matter before the meeting. It was clearly in the works before our last meeting, and I would like you all to know that I find it disrespectful and insulting. I will not support wasting any more money on matters that should be resolved through a simple conversation. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reviewing this whole situation, it's shocking to me because just listening to how this is evolving, I've been saying right from the beginning, the allegations are rooted in inaccuracies and an inflated version of a minor incident. Just like the investigation keeps evolving, it went from 3, now it's all of a sudden apparently 4, the comments are also evolving. Old, little, misogynistic was never said. I never said those terms. So that's completely false. If any of those things were said on social media, the great thing about social media is it's a paper trail. Everything's documented. So if you're saying those things are being said, where's the proof? Bring copies of it. Let's see it. Because guess what? It's not there. I'm not saying those things. And the fact that you keep going on the record and saying that I am is defamatory, is harassment, is shameful, and it's not okay. Selectively choosing just 4 now, reports does not constitute a true, unbiased, and fulsome investigation. There was other people in that room, and I bet you if you interviewed all those people, there would be those inconsistencies. Contrary to what some may believe, I am not serving on council for personal gain. Attempts to shame me, investigations by the Integrity Commissioner, and wage remuneration will not achieve the desired outcome sought by council members. I'm sorry, but it's not going to. This reaction from council members is not only extreme, but also reflects, as Member Rahi said, poorly on both council members and this municipality. I think given by the comments of councillors tonight, there is no appetite from those council members to mediate. However, I would welcome the opportunity, as our delegator Cynthia said, to look into mediation, because I also don't want to go through this anymore. The disrespect and harassment that you're feeling, I can guarantee you I'm feeling it too. So I don't want to work in a workplace like that either. So if mediation is a way to get around this and heal that, I would welcome that. I think that's a great idea. Our community, bottom line, our community faces significant challenges, and diverting time, resources, and finances to investigations driven by personal agendas is both wasteful and counterproductive. The true victims in this situation are the residents who are ultimately footing the bill for this baseless pursuit. Instead of focusing on trivial matters, we should be directing our time and resources towards addressing the real issues that are facing our community. Thank you.
Mr. Swayze, are you still with us? I think Mr. Swayze has left. Okay, I was just going to ask him if you had any further comment. Very well. We have a resolution that we haven't named yet, so resolution.
That the salary of Councillor DeRosier be suspended for a period of 90 days commencing with the next pay period.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Roslash moves and Deputy Mayor Barber seconds. I think we've all had our say. Did you have something further to comment on, Councillor?
Your Worship, I'd like a recorded vote.
Very well. We'll have a recorded vote. Councillor Chapman?
I just have a comment from what Councillor DeRosier just said. If we could have a mediation on top of this, that would be fantastic, because I neither want to spend the next 2 years wondering if what I say will end up being ridiculed and put on social media.
Good. Sir,
Well, I'm sorry, but
if you're going to heckle, you're going to have to do it louder because I can't hear.
Okay, I was.
And once I, just a moment, sir, just a moment, sir, just a moment.
Misogynistic, and you're
Color-
claiming that my wife called you misogynistic.
I'm sorry, I did not say that she said.
So we'll continue. We had a comment from Councillor Chapman, and I would like to add to that comment. I would certainly welcome mediation of any kind. Many of you in this room will remember that in our first kind of encounter between Councillor Desrosiers and myself, I did ask Councillor Desrosiers to speak to me, and she said, "Don't talk to me, don't call me, don't text me, don't do anything with me. I don't want to talk to you." You remember that, I'm sure. I think that's finished, okay? I think that's a thing in the past. But
No, if you're
let's
going.
mediate.
Quote me, can you quote me accurately? And make sure my mic is working too.
Well, I may have missed a word or two.
No, that's not what I said at all. I said, do not talk to me, do not text me, do not call me. Anything you have to say from this point forward can be on the record. So you say it in an email or you say it on recorded a public meeting, because
That's
I
fine.
want it on the record. I don't want any of these backdoor discussions, because that's how these misquotes happen. So if you're going to speak to me or have any type of discussion with me, it needs to be recorded.
That's fine.
And then there's no he said, she said. It's, you want to say something, here's exactly what happened.
Okay. Being on the record is just great. We'd like to do that. Part of that mediation, I think, should be about the, the social media posts and posts which continue to go against the will of council. If that's, don't agree with, that should be part of the mediation.
And who's doing this mediation? Because it sure as
I don't know.
hell
We
can't
can
be
work-
Robert Swayze.
We can work that out later. We can work, don't have to work it out right now. Anyway, we have a motion on. Any other comments on the motion? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Your worship, a clarification. Councillor Chapman made a suggestion on mediation. Where does that suggestion fall into the motion?
In terms of?
Well, are you asking for, Councillor Chapman, are you asking for an amendment to the resolution?
An
Which
addition
was
to.
the, pardon me?
An addition to.
Help me understand.
Help you understand?
Yes, please.
The recommendation of the Integrity Commissioner
There's a 3-month suspension.
is a 3-month suspension, and that we go into mediation.
Mediation and a suspension?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have a question on that?
Certainly, I just to assist a bit, usually mediation's done at the outset of a complaint. Now, to do it afterwards might be tough, but there's one important thing. Mediation, in order for mediation to proceed, both parties need to be willing partners. So it isn't something that council could direct. It would require everybody to be willing, and there would have to be, obviously, a lawyer brought in to facilitate that to some degree.
Does it need to be a lawyer, or is there another form?
Usually, it would be the integrity commissioner sitting down with both parties. When a complaint is made. That's usually the way it would happen, but we've heard one member has already vocally indicated that she would not participate with that. So that would mean mediation wouldn't proceed.
Can I clarify this? Maybe mediation isn't the term that I'm looking for. It needs to be something that we come together and figure out how to work as a team, because that's what this is about. It's about working together to create something for the better good, for the good of the community. And if we are constantly bickering, there will be no result. So is there another form of
To assist, I think it's appropriate, if council wants to direct staff to bring a report back, the clerk could work on some potential options for you to consider. Maybe it's a facilitate a training session with council so we can work through some of the issues. Dispute resolution training session or something. I know AMO's doing one. Something like that might be effective, and certainly would be more cost effective and a bit more informal.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment or suggestion. Why can't we just keep it simple? If there's an issue, talk to someone, maybe maybe Owen, and then Owen can sit down, and the two people that are having an issue can say, this is what I think, this is what I think, and then say, figure it out. Like, why does it everything have to be so complicated with a lawyer? Like, if it's a simple issue like we had, like this started out with, and is blown up to be a goddamn mess, why can't-
Language, please, right? Yeah.
why can't we just make it simple?
And
So anyways, carry on.
certainly, I don't think we need a lawyer here. I think, though, that the mediation facility talking together is about all of council. It's not just two people. It's all of council, all right? So I think that, let's throw it back at staff to come up with an idea of how we can do this. Would be the best solution, right? Councillor Oslach.
I would volunteer,
You said you would volunteer?
right, to be the mediator.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
You're a member of council.
Yeah.
Okay, any other, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Barber?
Yes, Your Worship. Based on the conversation that we had, it appears there's some acceptance to striving to resolve this perhaps more amicably, and the mediation term, although it may not be the correct one, but to go down that path would be reasonable.
I think that's great. Yes. Anything else from council? Okay. Seeing nothing else, we have a hand up.
Sorry, is this just a clarification on the, what the resolution is then? Has it been amended, or what's happening?
Staff to come back with a report on possible mediation facility techniques, or what we can do to actually, solve the issue. But you're not making an amendment on this at all, are you, Councillor Chapman? No. The motion stays as it is. Does that answer your question, Councillor Roy? Sort of?
Yeah, I think so, huh?
Anything else? Seeing none, we have a recorded vote.
Your Worship, can we have a rereading of the motion, please?
That the salary of Councillor DeRosier be suspended for a period of 90 days commencing with the next pay period.
It's recorded.
Okay, that's okay. Councillor Rahe,
No.
Councillor Van Raes,
Yes.
Councillor Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Oslach,
No,
Deputy Mayor Barber,
Yes.
and Mayor Cookett.
Yes.
So the vote is carried 4-2.
Very well, thank you. Forgotten what part of the agenda we're on right now. We're on 5.13. Barb Forsdyke on behalf of Elmer Library Expansion Supporters. Welcome, Ms. Forsdyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Aylmer Library Expansion Supporters Group. First, let me say that I and many of the others here tonight have spent years of our lives advocating for a new and expanded library. Those years were filled with disappointments, close calls, and a profound sense of missed opportunities. You will note in the history of the library struggle that we came so very close in 2014 and in 2017. Each time the vote was lost by only one councillor voting against it. The implications of this are that we are now sitting in a crisis since we are so short on space. More importantly, we have lost an estimated $2 million in lease payments in the last several years that the county would have paid to lease the library. Furthermore, we have missed millions in grant dollars that are made available to communities. Why do governments offer such grants? This is done because libraries are at the heart of communities, providing education and culture and public space. Many studies indicate there is a significant economic benefit to communities with strong libraries. They bring in people from all over and who use the businesses and services the community has to offer. The report's principal recommendation is to request Elgin County establish a committee to advance the issues of the Greater Aylmer Area Library. We're only talking about Aylmer and South Malahide, not the whole county. I don't know why the word greater is in there. Anyway, although we appreciate the formation of a committee, Aylmer must not throw all the responsibility to the county. Rather, the communities must down. First and foremost, the project must involve meeting the needs of the community here and in South Malahide. This time, we hope, the process moves forward quickly and without the sort of resistance that from decision makers, specifically Aylmer Town Council, that has prevented Aylmer moving forward in the past and losing out. Now I shall address a few concerns arising from the report presented tonight. Anyway, the report offers the suggestion of releasing the library from its current lease. Would the town seriously consider losing your reliable renter of more than 40 years? That income has been vital, bringing in tens of thousands of dollars each year, and is pretty much the main source of revenue from that building. County libraries in general have a construction policy whereby the communities builds to, I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. County libraries in general have a construction policy whereby the community builds to the needs of the community and the county rents those facilities. This is standard practice. The town, in our view, must retain ownership of the library and receive the remuneration involved with leasing. Furthermore, the report concerns itself with staffing matters, but the county pays staff, not the town. So we would benefit from added staffing. The survey results, we have supposedly attached a summary compilation of survey results. I don't know if you got those or not. You were supposed to get them, but word has it, it didn't arrive. Anyway, the results have gone through a data and analysis based on citizen submissions from the August budget survey. There is strong support. We understand that there is support for an indoor pool. We reject the arguments that the pool should take priority over library expansion. There are several reasons for this. Libraries have long been an essential aspect of our Western culture, certainly from the time of Greek civilization. An indoor pool is a luxury which must be deferred until the basic components of our culture are met. Even more compelling to those who look at the work through a tough financial lens. Library funding is more available through grants, and the partnership with the county ensures that Aylmer is not taking on the exclusive responsibility. The pool is proposed for the East Elgin Community Complex, and there's another issue, Malahide. The analysis of Elgin County was based on the population based in Malahide as part of the equation, leading to the Aruplo projected number of more than 15,000 square feet. We believe this, I'm sorry, my eyes are giving out on me. We believe this is up to Elgin County and the department in charge to work through that relationship and the expectations, at least initially. then Aylmer may object. We would point out that if Malahide contributed funding, then they would expect some of the lease money paid monthly by the county to occupy that building. A very different financial arrangement than the East Elgin Community Complex. Aylmer Town Council is invested with the responsibility to provide leadership and defend the interests of the town. An expanded library is crucial to quality of life issues. Dozens of people visit the library daily, crammed into too tight a space, as noted in the librarian's comprehensive report during September council meeting. Aylmer should not relinquish its responsibility, as the report implies several times, entirely to the county. We recognize that the county is in a position to be a partner on this venture, but we expect the town to advocate on our behalf. We expect the town to move this item line into a AA priority capital project. The current priorities involve $2 million in the next 3 years for a police station, yet few citizens visit the police station, thankfully. Libraries help to keep communities safe and help to keep people out of jail. There is a great deal of social science data that proves the value of libraries. This brings us to the urgency of action. By the time any library is built, Aylmer alone will have a projected population of over 10,000 based on various subdivision builds underway with Hayhoe, Willow Park, and etc. We urge you to act now to reprioritize, to address the failures of the past by taking a position rather than just rubber stamping this report. This is not a new capital project. This has gone on for decades. I've lived here for 54 years, and it seems to me that this struggle has been going on for 2/3 of that time. Really, what does it take to move from sitting in the wings to becoming a top priority? And what happened to the capital reserve monies that designated for the library, then lost to general capital funding, robbing the library to fund what? Items on the AA list. If you build it, they will come. If you expand it, they will come. We have a vision backed by strong intention. We hope and pray you will support it by moving the library into a AA priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Forsdeck. Any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, we have resolution.
That the presentation from Barb Forsdyke regarding the library expansion project be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Rahi and Councilor Roselatch. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Excuse me. 521, a county collaboration library service resolution.
That report CAO 60-24 respecting county collaboration, library services, facilities, and funding be received for information, and that council send a request to Elgin County Council as the Elgin Public Library Board to establish a committee to advance the matter of a greater Elmer area library.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber, Councilor Desrosiers. Andy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before getting into the details of the report, I do want to acknowledge that I understand why some residents are expressing exasperation on this issue. I do think it's important for us here in the town to respect those feelings. I am a little bit more of a problem solver myself, so that's kind of my approach to plot a path forward. So I don't want anybody to take that in the wrong way, that we don't respect and acknowledge those feelings. We do. I won't go into the full background on this report as it relates to a lot of previous councils and administrations. I would, however, like to give just a brief overview on my involvement on this file. So I began with the town in March of 2021. This was an issue that was raised to me by that council as to be addressed very early in my tenure. So I reviewed the past information on this file, and I was surprised at the local level of opposition to a library. It shocked me, frankly, because my experience in municipal government's been very different around libraries. So that year, I recommended that council start a new annual budget survey, and I received permission to make the library a priority focus area in that survey. And what we got back that year was that a majority of the survey respondents did not support any increase in local taxation for a new library. So in September of that same year, the term of council endorsed a recommendation to not take any further action on a library expansion until such time as $500,000 in funds were raised. That amount was seen as achievable. Certainly, I've seen libraries do that. Delhi Library raised about almost $400,000 in a year period towards a redevelopment of their library. So it is an achievable goal, $500,000. In September, so following that being set, council established a lot of strategic plans and really created a vision for this community. And the focus was turning our community into one that was business and developer friendly, embraced growth, embraced modernization of our business processes, improved our engagement with the public, and improved our communications with the public. So to place this in the context, in 2021, the town had negative assessment growth. So our tax roll went down in 2021, and we've put in the effort and we've turned that narrative around. And now, where many municipalities are struggling to increase water, wastewater capacity, the town has been highly successful in those projects and also secured the largest amount of grant funding in the town's history. Ames Park had corn on it this time last year and is now fully serviced, ready to go, and by early 2025, we'll have sold enough pieces of property there to fully pay off the construction work. So these are good, sound investments in expanding the town's residential and industrial tax base to make things more affordable in the future for our residents. So I do know residents don't always see the full picture, but we have turned around Elmer from being one where developers and businesses didn't want to work with this community to one where they're clamoring to come here. And that's very good news, and we're kind of the apple of Elgin County's eyes for that there. So we're a positive example. The downside, and there's always a downside, is that we've drawn down our reserves. So in 2024 and 2025, we're expending as much in capital infrastructure as this community with our population can afford to spend in 7 to 10 years. So the expenditures are huge. And we're in a worse position now than we were in 2017 when this library was last voted on by the council for financing. So for us, it is a challenge now to see that we're still implementing these priorities and we're still going down this strategic path. And there is a need to paint a broader picture of the library coming back into the fold now and saying we can't just dump everything. We can't not do Elk Street. That project's been deferred a couple years. We need to continue to get and execute on our existing strategic plan, but we also need to start making a strategic plan on how we're going to do this library. So again, in 2024, the ALES began meeting again and being very active on the library, and they've had some great progress, I think, in our last budget survey to slightly improve what was going on with the 2021 survey in terms of community support. So there's positive things going on there. And I don't want the public to think that whatever plan we're coming up with will be short-term, though. The town's drawn down our reserves, and our ability to fund anything is limited right now. And I would be very concerned for us to proceed and recreate what happened in the past again, because I think really it's very important for the town to deliver success on this file. If we get it forward and we say to the community, it's going to cost you 20% tax increase to get this done, we're putting this project in jeopardy. So it's very important that we have the time to work with ALES, to work with the county, and get a plan that can actually happen. So there are a couple important issues to avoid. doing the same approaches that were unsuccessful in the past. Within this, it's important to recall that the record does not show that there was a lack of due diligence on this file by the town. The work on the library expansion was undertaken, but the project was always voted down. So, well, it's easy to suggest that this was because of the lack of will of past administrations or council. I think the harder thing to accept is that council was representing the desires of the community that they represented. And that's what we saw in the 2021, where people surprisingly weren't willing to fund a library expansion out of the tax increases. So it isn't something that all of a sudden council had all the information and decided to go in this direction. This project has always been a difficult one to sell to the community. And as an administrator, I look at this from a policy perspective, and it's clear to me that the county has failed to provide sufficient policy incentives to overcome this local resistance. I do believe that if there was an independent library board, this issue would have already been resolved. I have seen independent library boards effectively drive forward projects like this in a much shorter time frame. They meet monthly, they have an established broader vision for library services, and we're not getting that from Elgin County when they have 2 library meetings a year or 3 library reports a year on Elgin County Council. It's just not the same level of attention to library services in Elgin County that you get everywhere else. And so, you know, we have a problem here locally with the county establishing library practices where the main interest is downloading the capital cost onto lower tier municipalities. Elmer is being asked to construct a main library branch that will initially service 16 to 20,000 people, and you know that amount will probably grow to over 30,000 in the next 25 years. We have a population of 8,000 people. We should not be paying for a regional service. We should be paying for 8,000 people's access to that library. And if there was a library board, I can't help but see that we'd already be having that discussions and already have those negotiations to come to some reasonable compromise here to make this project happen and get this regional facility built. So that's kind of where I think we need to put pressure on, and we need to start saying to the county, we want discussions, we want to make sure that there's funding here, we want to make sure that there's fundraising, because our biggest challenge is trying to find a way to make this happen in terms of dollars and cents. And if we try to sell this and saying it's a huge tax increase or it's 30 years debt, we're going to face a high level of opposition, and I'm afraid that it won't get done again. So again, I want to stress, as much as people want to see this as an Elmer issue, what we're dealing with today is really the county needs to come forward with a viable solution for a regional library service that's headquartered in Elmer. Staff are recommending that we request the county, as the current library board, to establish a committee so that we can begin meeting along with ALES and get them going to step up to the table with the town. I know this is a lengthy overview, but I did want to provide some background because I know there's so many passionate people about this issue. I'm hopeful that we can get the county's ear on this and we can start moving this forward and we can come up with a plan. On a personal level, my background is in classical studies, so I love Greek libraries. That's my real passion myself. So I think this is a worthwhile and noble cause, and I assure those dedicated to it that if we fail to come forward with a plan, it won't be because of our timidity. It won't be because we back down. We're going to push this issue and make this a problem for the county until they address it. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you very much for that brief report. Wonderful. Council, questions, comments?
Through you, Mr.
Councilor
Mayor.
Rahi.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Andy, I think that was something. Good work. Who would the committee be made out of? Like Elmer residents or everybody in Elgin County? Or would it be the?
Well, the committee would be up to county council to decide who it's made of. But I think that, this is not abrogating our responsibility for a library. I think this is a major step in getting the county to take some responsibility for this. So it's a baby step, but it's a good baby step. It's really something that we should have been doing a long time ago. County needs to take more responsibility, and Elmer will be there along the way. Anything else? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. Good report, Andy. What I liked about it was a definitive plan and moving it forward in baby steps.
And this is a big baby step, though, really. Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, if this goes to county council, obviously you sit on county council, are you able to bring back updates to this council specifically about this? Like, I know you do a mayor's update and all that stuff, but can you make it a priority to kind of keep us updated with how this is evolving?
Absolutely, I will do that. Anything else? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? That is carried, thank you. Next item is 5.3, the public meeting. We need a resolution to,
That council do now commence a public meeting at 8:11 PM to receive input from the public with respect to general housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment to the Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, number 57-99.
all in favor? Mover and seconder first. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Desrosiers, all those in favor? It's carried. And then we go into a statement by the clerk.
Sorry, can I borrow this?
Yes. Councillor Desrosiers?
Sorry, can we perhaps just have a very brief recess to allow patrons to exit the gallery and then we can
I was going
resume?
to wait until after the public meeting, but I think that's a great idea. We'll have a recess right now. Right. Welcome back. I think we're at the point of the clerk reading the statements concerning a public meeting.
This public meeting is taking place under the Planning Act 1990 as amended. At this public meeting, council will hear public representations regarding the planning evaluation report for the general housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment to the Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 57-99. Please note that those who do not provide comment or written submission prior to the decision of the appropriate authority may not be afforded the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Council will hear comments in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, not in this case, the public, staff, and the clerk.
Thank you. Could the Manager of Planning and Development please provide her report?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. The application you have before you is the report you have before you is to provide council with a proposed general housekeeping amendment to the Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 57-99, and also to hold a public meeting to receive comments on the proposed amendment. The Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw has been in effect since November 8th, 1999. Since that time, there's been several site-specific amendments by property owners to the zoning bylaw, as well as updates to the zoning bylaw, what we planners call as housekeeping amendments. The most recent housekeeping amendment that is to our zoning bylaw was in 2021. At the April 17th, 2024 council meeting, I provided council with a high-level kind of background report of, these are some of the issues as staff, we were going to look at for the general housekeeping amendment. Since that time, this list has kind of shifted a bit, it's evolved. So for this proposed zoning bylaw amendment, staff, we are recommending in the proposed amendment, to look at the following: amend, add, and remove definitions pertaining to balconies, decks, sun decks, veranda, and lot coverage. The second item is amend and add general provisions for additional residential units. Third one is amend and add visitor parking space requirements for apartment buildings, multiple dwellings, and townhouses. Fourth, add stacking lane space requirements for drive-through facilities. Amend the site triangles section of the bylaw to prohibit fences within site triangles. The sixth item is to add shipping container regulations. Seventh item is to amend the commercial core C1 zone regulations for dwelling units. The eighth item is to add the residential type special provision 21 R2-21 for 104 and 106 South Street East. This was due to an error that was made in-house. Number 9 was to amend the residential multiple second density special provision 11, shift that to which is RM2-11, shift that to RM2-12, again, due to an error made in-house. The 10th item was to amend the Schedule A zoning bylaw maps to correct and revise maps. And the last thing is to amend and add to the table of contents due to the proposed changes to the bylaw. I've provided a draft zoning bylaw amendment in my report for council to review. This amendment has been circulated to public agencies, has also been posted on the Town of Elmer's website for public review and comment. In terms of planning policy review, in terms of the provincial policy statement, as you're aware, council, with their decision-making, has to ensure that decisions are consistent with the provincial policy statement. In terms of the county's official plan, a zoning bylaw amendment is required to be in conformity with an upper-tier official plan. This proposed zoning amendment does conform to the county's official plan. In terms of the town's official plan, within section 6.2.1 bylaw to conform to the plan, it states that a comprehensive zoning bylaw shall zone land in accordance with land use regulations and policies, and shall establish regulations to control the use of land, character, location, use of building and structures, and that is the case in our current zoning bylaw. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will conform to the policies of the town's official plan, and an amendment to our official plan is not required. In terms of consultation, the public meeting notice was published in the Elmer Express on October 30th, 2024. The notice, along with the draft zoning bylaw amendment, was also posted on the town's website for review. The application was also circulated to town staff and the applicable commenting agencies a minimum of 20 days prior to this meeting. At the time of submission of this report, no comments were received from town staff, as we've been working on this for the last few months, working together collaboratively, as well as no comments were received from the applicable commenting agencies. Moving on to public comments, I have received some comments. One public comment was received from David Trailer of T5 Developments, Inc. Mr. Trailer provided the following comments on the proposed draft housekeeping amendment. I've identified them in my report. Essentially, the comments were pertaining to the drive-through facilities, the stacking lane requirements that we're adding. There was a concern regarding for restaurants. In the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, staff are recommending that at the drive-through stacking lane, that there'd be 2 spaces for vehicles to park after the window. Mr. Trailer was wanting staff to reduce this down to 1, as well as he identified a concern with the width of the turning radius that we had proposed inside that stacking lane. I can speak to those comments. In terms of the number of spaces in the stacking lane after the pickup window, the reasons why staff are recommending to keep the 2 parking spaces after the pickup window is due to the fact that it minimizes the potential for the stacking lane backing up into a municipal road should an item such as food not be cooked as quickly as required. Anyone who's gone through drive-through lanes, if you've ever noticed, sometimes you have to, after you exit the pickup window, you have to pull over to the side to wait for your food to be cooked. If we do not allow for 2 parking spaces to be accounted for outside of that stacking lane, it backs up the lane, which therefore backs up traffic. If we do get an application, if staff do get a site plan application come in, for instance, where a development is proposing to reduce the stacking lane requirements, they could apply for a minor variance, should council approve this. And they would then also need to look at a stacking lane study to reduce the requirements. Staff are of the opinion that would be the appropriate method moving forward, should this be approved. In terms of the turning radius within the stacking lane, Terry Koenig, Director of Infrastructure, he's provided the following response. He agrees that the 7-meter turning radius is excessive in the drive-through. He agrees with him and recommend to reduce it down to 3.5 meters. With council's approval, town staff are recommending to revise that proposed section in the draft zoning bylaw to the 3.5 meters for the turning radius lane for stacking. In terms of further comments, I did also receive comments from Councillor DesRosiers. The comments questions were pertaining to amend, add, and remove definitions pertaining to balcony deck, sun deck, veranda, and lot coverage, and I can speak to that. So the definition for balcony is proposed to be revised to identify where it can be located on a building. The definitions for deck, sun deck, and veranda are proposed to be merged into one definition, deck or veranda, as the definitions for deck, sun deck, and veranda are repetitive, and they're similar in wording in the zoning bylaw. The definition for lot coverage is proposed to be revised to include the first story of all buildings, which provides greater clarity on the location, and to include all other projections such as decks and steps. This means that decks and steps will also be included in the lot coverage for a lot. And the second question that was asked was add residential type 2 special provision 21 R2-21 for 104 and 106 South Street East due to error. As part of the housekeeping amendment, town staff, we reviewed the entire zoning bylaw, which includes the text and the zoning maps. During this review, it was determined that an error was made for 102 and 104 South Street East, which has a semi-detached building with each semi-detached unit having an additional residential unit in the basement. The error was made at the time of the new provincial legislation, Bill 23, for additional residential units coming into effect. At this time, there was some confusion with staff and with essentially the province and the information they were providing to us on the interpretation of the number of units that could be permitted on a lot. This error has been identified to be addressed with this proposed amendment. The additional residential units are legal units with legal building permits. This will result in no effect to the property owner. And that is all the comments that have been received on this proposed zoning bylaw amendment. In terms of financial impact, in terms of costs, this has all been budgeted for this project. So in conclusion, the proposed housekeeping amendment to the Town of Aylmer zoning bylaw, it's intended to improve the user friendliness of this document, correct errors, and to amend areas of concern as a result of development review proposals since our previous housekeeping amendment in 2021. This public meeting is an opportunity for council and the public to review the proposed amendment and to provide comments. Town staff are recommending revising the draft bylaw based on comments noted above in the report and based on direction from council this evening. Town staff intend to bring forward an implementing bylaw for council's approval at the December 4th, 2024 meeting of council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to these amendments? Do you have a list of anyone that wants, no list of anyone? Have you received any additional communications?
No, I have not.
Okay, with no, I guess, council, do you have any questions or comments on this? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Just one question to Heather. The only comment that I personally have received was from, or regarding multi-unit, high-density, multi-unit residential, regarding the parking spaces going from 1 to 1.25. From a logistical perspective, it certainly handles the majority of the concerns of the residents and is a viable recommendation. The concern that was expressed was, would it impede a developer from making a viable project? Can you, from your experience, relate how going from 1 to 1.25 may or may not affect development? And secondly, to that, if a developer came forward and wanted to make a site-specific amendment, that could certainly be considered based on the information provided in the document.
Through you, Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor Barber. In terms of the potential impact on any future developments, we've actually been, this draft amendment is great timing because we've had a few kind of discussions with potential developers, and we've been testing out this proposed changes. We're seeing it having minimal impact on developments. It's actually causing developers to slightly reconfigure some of their plans. And they are taking our concerns seriously. It's also important to note that we've also addressed the visitor parking requirements because currently we have no regulations for visitor parking, and that is also being accounted for. So what we're seeing right now from what the proposals, we've seen minimal impact. And should a developer not be able to meet the parking requirements, they would be required to come in and apply for a minor variance, have council review their proposal as well as staff, have the public have an opportunity to provide input, and have a decision made.
Thank you.
Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to echo those comments, I feel the amendment to that parking is good due diligence on the part of the municipality. It's something that we have raised at this council all the time from residents and, or not really developers, more so residents, that not adequate parking, not enough visitor parking, people parking on streets in front of their houses because there's not adequate parking. So I think doing this is really good due diligence on our part. So thank you very much, Heather, for including that.
Anyone else from council? Seeing none, we can adjourn the public meeting and consider the action on the report.
That council do now close this public meeting at 8:32 p.m. and reconvene the meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Rahi and Councillor Desrosiers, all those in favor, as carried. Now we will go to the resolution concerning this report.
That report, Plan 28-24, Planning Evaluation Report, Housekeeping Zoning Bylaw Amendment, ZBA 06-24 to the Town of Elmer Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 57-99 be received, and that council considered public input at the public meeting scheduled for November 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m., and that the council of the Town of Elmer direct the manager of planning and development to prepare the implementing bylaw for the 2024 general housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment for consideration at the December 4th, 2024 meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Van Raes and Councillor Oslach. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution as carried. Thank you. We turn to item 6, consent agenda. resolution?
That the November 20th, 2024 consent agenda be received for information, and that council approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 6, 2024.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman and Deputy Mayor Barber. Any questions, comments on these? Councillor Rosier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question about item 6.1.2, which is the Elgin County 2025 Budget Open House. I'm just wondering, as a county councillor, if you can provide a little bit more information to council and the public about that event, please.
I wish I could. The information was this morning, and I couldn't make the meeting that discussed it. So all I know is it's going to be at the Old Town Hall. And this is the first time that they've had them actually moving from one place of the county to the other. So I suspect it's just the major items that the budget is considering at this time, but I don't have any other information. Anything else? No? Okay, mover and second. All those in favor of the resolution? That's carried. Thank you. Item 7, action item 7.1. Tender award, hanging baskets. We have a resolution.
That report Recreation 28-24 entitled Tender Award 2025 Supply and Delivery of Floral Hanging Baskets, Bridge Boxes, and Bedding Plants be received for information, and that council accept the tender submitted by Lucan Country Gardens in the amount of $4,762, excluding HST, for the supply and delivery of the floral hanging baskets, bridge boxes, and bedding plants.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Roselike, Councillor Desrosiers. Councillor Chapman.
Through you, Your Worship, I do have one comment. I see that Lucan Country Gardens is only $90 less than a more local garden center. And I'm wondering if in the future, when you're doing the bidding system, if there could be points added for it being a local facility. I don't know if it's graded on points or if it's just the value of the item itself, because $90 is a very small amount. And when you can support local, it's always nice to support local.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's a great question. I know many municipalities have looked at local vendor preference for inclusion in their procurement policies. I don't know of anyone that does it. It's the low bid tenders, they're not evaluated. When tenders come in based on low bid, it's strictly the low bid, and when you put your procurement documents out, that's how you've specified that this procurement will be taking place based on low bid, not proximity within the municipal boundaries. Yeah.
Okay, so can I so if it came from Toronto and it was the lowest bid, we'd still have to accept it?
Is there a way, you mentioned that that's part of the procurement policy, is there a way that this could be added to the procurement policy, or is that a no-no?
I can potentially answer it. So that's considered a discriminatory practice. Okay. So you can, unfortunately, you can't, and you can't even discriminate if it's U.S. bidders, because the World Trade Organization will get involved. So yeah, you don't have any ability to provide preference to anybody locally.
Okay. Thank you.
Thankfully, we don't get any U.S. bidders. Councillor Van Raes, you had your hand up too.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just wanted to note that it's stated in the report that the amount was $4,762, but it's actually $4,652. So I was just pointing that out.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Right there. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And we carried. Director of Infrastructure, tender award on John Street South Sidewalk. We have a resolution.
That report Operations 25-24 entitled Tender Award 2025 Sidewalk Program, John Street South, be received for information, and that the tender submitted by Autoform Contracting London Limited in the amount of $96,472, excluding HST, be accepted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement with Autoform Contracting London Limited following the terms and conditions in the tender document.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Barber, Councilor Rahi. And I think, Terry, you're doing this one?
Thank you. Through your worship to members of council, the report that's before you is for the 2025 sidewalk program. The project is for the installation of new sidewalk on the east side of John Street South from Alexander Drive to 249 John Street. This is the site of an ongoing development, a townhouse development, which is where the sidewalk currently ends. It's straight across from Clarence Street. This section was selected through the pedestrian crossing analysis and subsequent report completed for the intersection of Alexander and John. And if I can say, council can tip their caps in approving the capital budget so early. It allowed staff to post tenders early and receive very competitive pricing on projects such as this. The tender received 14 bidders, which is very significant interest. The lowest bidder was Autoform Contracting. The town has completed projects with this contractor in the past and is happy with their work. The project represents very good value, and staff recommend proceeding with the contract. And on that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council might have.
Council. Deputy Mayor Barber?
Thank you, Worship. Just another example of staff being proactive and getting tenders out in a timely manner. And we, the town, benefit by the value that we receive and getting an early start in the 2025 construction season.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. 7.3, Director of Finance, appointment of the auditor.
That report finance 26-24 respecting the appointment of the auditor 25 be received as information, and that council directs staff to present a bylaw appointing Sigmori Company, CPA Professional Corporation, as municipal auditors for the town of Elmer for 2025.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Van Raes and Councilor Chapman. Heather?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you and to members of council, I just wanted to mention that this is a standard report, the appointment of the auditor that we do yearly. Since we've been pulling it up into the prior year, our auditor's able to do some of the cutoff testing for the next year earlier through the final audit of 2024. So if this appointment happens earlier, she's able to start some of the testing for next year, which has reduced the cost of the audit fees, just to, for everybody's benefit to wonder why we're appointing this in a prior year. So I did talk to Christine, even though the costs are rising in the industry, obviously due to inflation from labor costs. Christine was able to confirm that she could hold her rates steady from the past year, plus only inflationary increase. This is because we have found some efficiencies through the process over the past years through finance. Also, like I said, being able to pull some of those samples ahead of time from the final audit of the prior year allows her to not have to come back so many times throughout the year. Quite frankly, we're doing interim audit next week for 2024. She'll come back in March of 2025, and she'll be able to do some good analysis on the next year with approval of council of this appointment.
Council? Councilor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Heather, could you please clarify how long Christine has served as our municipality's auditor, and then also explain to me, like, I understand the efficiency of having the same auditor every single year for easement, but does the municipality have any type of due diligence to issue a competitive tendering process for the auditing services, or how do we get around that with the auditor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. I'm not sure how many years she's been the auditor here. Quite a few. I should have looked that up. I apologize. But with our tendering or our procurement process, there's items such as auditors, banks, IT providers, where we've included that in the document to say that we don't necessarily have to go out for tender, but if that's the wish of council, we can certainly RFP. It's a little late in the game right now, but if that's the wish of council, we can put together an RFP.
Continue on this?
Sorry, just a follow-up. We don't have a due diligence as a government organization to do it, is what you're saying then?
If it assists, these are all very, very good questions. Certainly, there is value to routinely considering bringing in a new auditor. And certainly, we could look at that for 2026 potentially for council without, I hate to go audit right before, or go out to RFP right before, but it is good to have a fresh set of eyes. The Municipal Act does require, it puts a time limit on the appointments, and the way that the town has gotten around that is we've appointed annually. And Christine has been very helpful with, certainly with our finance team when we had new management in providing a lot of the past history. And I think Heather, though, and her team have worked through all of the bugaboos that we found or any issues in journal entries in the financial system now. So going forward after this year, we could. Christine has provided quite a couple years of holding her cost, which has been beneficial for us as well. But these are great questions, and I think it's certainly would not deter council from going out to market for 2026 if you want.
One more?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not suggesting that we obviously look for someone else. If she's competitive, then great. I just want to know, like, a yes or no. Do we, as a municipality, have a due diligence to issue a competitive tender process for this service, or are we exempt? I just need a yes or a no.
I believe we're exempt from this because the section quoted there in the Municipal Act, Section 296, requires you can't appoint them for longer than 5 years. And the way that we're exempt is we do it every year. But we'll have to go through the procurement process in detail because this has been a long-running historical relationship that predates Heather and me. But we will look into it and report back.
I believe Christine was the auditor back in 2010.
Yes.
Councillor Oslad.
She's been here 14 years.
Okay. Heather?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make one more comment that she does do the PSB ECC consolidation and the town. So she also does BIA.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Is carried. 7.4, tax write-offs, resolution.
That report, Finance 27-24, entitled Tax Write-Off Report 2024, be received for information, and that council acknowledge the changes to the 2024 tax roll as outlined in Schedule A as the 2024 tax write-offs approved under the Municipal Act.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Rahi. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report you have in front of you this evening is a standard yearly report to be put in front of council per the Municipal Act. I'll just go through and explain the write-offs for council's benefit. So the first one in the list is for a sliver of a parcel that is owned by a small company that can't sell and no one pays taxes on it. So in 2015, it's beside the CN rail line. This was a failed tax sale that right before it went to failed tax sale in 2015, council wrote it off. It's basically $76 total, which is only $40 for the municipality. The next one for 63 Queen Street was a flip from commercial to residential. Again, for the municipality, it's about $2,000. 134 Rutherford was now residential, entirely residential. There was a part of the commercial space that was removed. The 24 Sydenham was for a commercial space not rented. Then we have a few properties that are the town of Elmer that we write off. The largest one is for Jane Street, which, for council's benefit, we've discussed this prior. It's a loss of condo assessment that's moved to new multi-res. That's the largest amount of write-off. And then finally, Myrtle Street, there's some multiplexes that are not rented currently. Then we have the bylaws that are from bylaw 0910 and county bylaw 1318 for affordable housing for 69 Brown Street. We also have our pump station that we write off, and we also have a bylaw with the Catfish Creek Authority for a few of the park spaces. So with that said, we have covered, we levied 6.984 million last year in tax revenue in budget. We have covered 6.983 million with the subs and omit run, so we're essentially only short about $1,000 overall, which is good.
Thank you. Council? Seeing no comments or questions, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. 7.5, CAO Roma Conference, we have resolution.
That report CAO 59-24 respecting the 2025 Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Rahi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is simply to make council aware that the Roma delegations close on the 26th. Staff aren't recommending delegating as we don't have any new projects that are shovel-ready, and everyone is kind of expecting a spring election will be called at this point. So if the province were to call an election in February, for instance, we would not expect anything delegated upon in January to be advanced. So really, I think what we're thinking is focus on the AMO in the summer, especially if there's a new government elected at that time. It'll be very important for Elmer to be very polished and present a delegate on numerous items there. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions of council.
Council. Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not limited to delegations, right? Like if we were to do a delegation for Roma, are we now limited for a delegation at AMO? Okay. While I understand Elmer doesn't have significant agricultural land, this should not be a reason to exclude the municipality from participating in provincial delegations. With provincial leaders being accessible at the event, not pursuing delegations would represent a missed opportunity for advocacy. Elmer has several important matters to raise that extend far beyond the boundary adjustment. For instance, the municipality could advocate for funding opportunities related to recreational infrastructure, as well for support for culture and heritage initiatives, such as the Heritage Grant Program for Old Town Hall, which is being discussed at that committee. Additionally, addressing the ongoing healthcare service shortage with the community is another critical issue that could be raised. Given that municipal representation is already going to be present at the event, it would be an oversight not to take advantage of this platform to pursue these important discussions and potential support for opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, all those in favor of the report? Raise your hand. You got all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 7.8, correspondence, resolution.
That correspondence dated November 14th, 2024 regarding the recommendations of the Old Town Hall Advisory Committee be received for information, and that council directs staff to investigate the feasibility of and methods to present films at the Old Town Hall, with the focus of their inquiry being on options that present ease of use and scales of cost, and that council refers the staff report on this matter to the Old Town Hall Advisory Committee for consideration, and that council directs staff to report on the key facility upgrades to increase facility usability, including but not limited to expanding theater washrooms, kitchen facilities, improving accessibility through elevator upgrades, and upgrading electrical service to support increased loads. And that council refer the staff report on this matter to the Old Town Hall Advisory Committee for consideration.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Desrosiers and Deputy Mayor, what is his name?
Barber.
Barber, thank you. Who's doing the report? Anyway, Owen, thank you.
There really is no report associated with this. A draft of the minutes are attached to the resolution. This was the product of last week's Old Town Hall Advisory Committee meeting. And I'll also just note that the concerns about the elevator have already been addressed with APAC, and they're resolved.
Okay. Do we have, did I ask for a mover and seconder on this one? I've forgotten.
Yep.
You did. Okay, Council. Councilor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I think this is a great idea. It's looking at other options for utilizing the facilities that hasn't been thought of before. So I think it's a great first step forward for the committee, and I want to say good work.
Yep. Agreed. Anyone else? Councilor Van Raes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's some good things that can come out of this report. The one concern I have is resolution number 1324, which would reports on the condition of the Old Town Hall, specifically those related to the exterior and foundation issues outlined as fair, poor in the report, with costs charted on page 10 and 12. So my issue with that is I think the committee was briefed on kind of what the role is in regarding Old Town Hall and what the town's position is on funding the renovations and what our plan is. So this recommendation for council is to put in a grant to the Federal Legacy Fund, which I believe to be able to put in a grant, you also have to have funds ready. So that's my one concern with that report.
Okay, thank you. I know that was discussed at the Old Town, at the meeting. I don't think this is part of this report, however, so. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the report? Yes, carried, thank you. Correspondence, Town of Aurora motion regarding fair share, moved by Councillor Chapman.
Okay. Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other critical services, which are essential to community well-being and economic development. And whereas the current sources of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet those increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the province of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects the goods and sales tax on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs, and whereas distributing a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable and sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a tax burden on residents or home buyers. And whereas a redistribution of a portion of the existing land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives supporting local economic growth and improving the quality of life for residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Aylmer Council officially requests that the provincial government to consider redistributing a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities. And two, be it further resolved that the Town of Aylmer Council calls on the federal government to allocate a percentage of the GST collected on property sales tax to municipalities. And three, be it further resolved that this distribution of the land transfer tax and GST should be structured to provide predictable and sustainable funding to municipalities, allowing for better long-term planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring that local governments receive a fair share of revenue to address critical infrastructure needs. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Doug Ford, Ontario Minister of Finance, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local MPs and members of Parliament. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be forwarded to all 444 municipalities in Ontario and the federal government, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for their endorsement and advocacy.
Thank you for that. Mover and seconder. Councillor Chapman, of course, moved, and Councillor Oslach will second. Any comments on this? It's Councillor Desrosiers.
Sorry, I was wondering, since Councillor Chapman brought this forward, is she able to speak to it at all?
Certainly.
Am I able to speak to it? It's just a matter of getting our fair share. If all of these taxes are going to the province and not coming back to the municipality, it reduces the ability for the municipality to improve their infrastructure. So it doesn't make sense that all of this money goes to the province and not back where it came from.
So it'd be nice if we could add all HST to come back to the municipality as well. Do that in this resolution. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried, thank you. There's no new business or matters of urgency. Reading of bylaws and proceedings are on. Bylaws.
That council gives 3 readings to and improves bylaw 74-24, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at the regular council meeting held on November 6, 2024. Bylaw 75-24, being a bylaw to set water and wastewater rates for 2025 within the town of Elmer. Bylaw 76-24, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the corporation of the town of Elmer and Black & McDonald Limited for the supply and installation of an evaporative cooling tower condenser.
Okay, we're in seconder. Councillor Van Raes and Councillor Chapman. Any questions on these? Seeing none, all those in favor, as carried. Inquiries by members. Seeing none. Statements and committee reports of members. Councillor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a while since I've been at the table, so I do have quite a bit here to talk with council about. In October, I had the privilege of presenting to the East Elgin Secondary School leadership class. I shared insights on the role of a town councillor and my personal experiences in municipal government. Engaging with a passionate and thoughtful group of young leaders was incredibly rewarding, and I left the discussions feeling both inspired and optimistic about the future of leadership. Shortly thereafter, I attended the AMO Healthy Democracy Conference. I was invited by the Association of Municipalities, AMO, as a result of my advocacy in increasing women's leadership or representation in leadership roles. The conference provided a valuable platform for industry and provincial leaders to collaborate and exchange ideas. I look forward to bringing forward key findings and proposals to council in our upcoming meetings. My sincere thanks to AMO for facilitating such a constructive and insightful dialogue. In related news, I'm excited to share that the 2025 Elgin Women's Leadership Conference will take place on March 29th at the Casso Station in St. Thomas. Our keynote speaker this year will be Indra Naidu-Harris, a respected public leader, policymaker, journalist, and advocate. Indra's distinguished career includes serving as Ontario's first Minister of the Status of Women. Further details about the conference will be available online with ticket sales opening soon. Tomorrow, I will once again be attending Queen's Park. I've had the privilege of working closely with Minister Flack, who has been a strong ally and supporter of women in leadership. I would like to extend my gratitude to Minister Flack and his team for inviting me back to Ontario's Parliament, and I look forward to our discussions tomorrow. Finally, this Saturday is the 80th annual Elmer Kinsman Santa Claus Parade. I'm thrilled to be co-hosting this year alongside Kinsman Andy Beck. This beloved community event is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the season, and I look forward to joining with the community for what promises to be a festive occasion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? No? Report of the mayor, just a few items. Was it this week? I've forgotten. Well, we recently met with teachers during their PD day. That was last Friday. And it was Clerk Owen and Deputy Clerk Michelle who put together a kind of lesson plan with about 30 teachers who met to find out what kinds of relationships we can have between the school and the municipality. Very well put together, Owen and Michelle. Very well received. And so we had open dialogue about how we can deal with each other in the future and promise to continue talking. So that was very, very good. So thank you for that presentation. I recently met with the East Elgin Family Health Team and a member from the municipality of Malahide and the warden of Elgin County. and other interested peoples, including doctors, to talk about how we can develop sort of out-of-the-box responses to the shortage of doctors. And of course, that's not something that is just a concern to Elmer, but everywhere else. And I understand there's a number of doctors that are going to be retiring in Tillsonburg soon, so it's going to even increase the pressure on people from this area in trying to find a doctor. So we looked at ways of dealing with this kind of problem. I understand that we are able to, in the East Ogden Family Health Team, include 2 more doctors than we currently have. So I just wanted to mention that because we are, this stuff is on our radar, and we're trying to find ways of doing this because, we really, the shortage of doctors is an important factor. And 2 of the things that I think the government should consider is making it easier for doctors from other countries to come here, because one of the doctors that we're getting in Elmer does come from Europe. It took a long time to get that person here. And the other issue that would solve things is to make the province aware that, and they are aware really, to make them create more, nurse practitioner clinics in the area, because that also helps the reliance on doctors if you can go to a clinic with nurse practitioners. So we continue to, keep our finger on what we can do for this. This council meeting is the first council meeting of the 3rd year, so I want to report on what council did in the last year, and I'll try to be quick because I know it's late already, but I think it's important to kind of put some, put some lists together on what we have done. In our 2nd year, we had 15 delegations. We had 197 staff reports in the last year. The CAO, again, was number 1 with 55 reports. All of these are important kinds of things for council to consider. 73 bylaws. I'd like to point out that the mayor's thank you went to David Chalk, John Bardwell, and Peter Blaine, Jack Baribeau, and the last one to Dr. Duncan Sinclair. A few of the accomplishments, in case you've forgotten them, and these are not counting zoning or maintenance items that we have to deal with constantly. The Ames Park opening, with 1 property already in Ames Park at the time of the opening. That was great. The formation of the roundtable discussions in the old town hall committee was certainly a major look at what we can do with that area. The mural in Balmoral, and eventually on the bridge as a major kind of a thing that would, kudos to the beautification committee that helped these along. Willow Run is finished and building. There's a great amount of building going on in Willow Run right now. We have boundary negotiations with Malahide, which have been going on for the last 6 months or so. I have negotiations concerning the East Ogden Community Complex, which will be a major change and positive for that building. There's community programming focus and a grant that was received. Lagoons revitalization, over $4 million in grants that we got for that. The John Street South development, where the old Pantry Mart used to be. Parks and Recreation Master Plan implementation is beginning this year. The strategic plan for 24-27 was finished. The Adopt a Park program, which is developed through the recreation people. The completion of the water tower, almost. Could put pipes in there yet. The Joint Investment Board participation, a major item for what we do with the money that we can invest. And I guess there's 2 new businesses going in on Progress Drive. So there's a lot of stuff that happened in year 2. So thank you very much. And that leaves us to notice of motion. Is there any notice of motion? And we have a meeting closed to the public. Resolution.
That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 9:08 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Director of Legislative Services report or memo respecting the Police Service Board community member appointment. Director of Finance and Treasurer Report Finance 28-24 respecting the CAO performance review, and the Chief Administrative Officer verbal update respecting committee appointments. And that considerations of these matters is pursuant to Section 239-2B of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended as the subject matter pertains to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Okay, thank you. Mover and seconder, Councillor Van Raes and Councillor Chapman. All those in favor, that is carried. We'll have a brief recess before we adjourn to the Okay, everyone, welcome back. We have a resolution coming out of closed.
That council rise from a meeting closed to the public at 9:38 PM and reports the following: that council received for information and provided direction to the chief administrative officer, clerk and director of legislative services, and director of finance and treasurer regarding the report memo, police service board member appointment, the chief administrative officer memo respecting committee appointments, and report finance 28-24 respecting the CAO performance review for 2024, and that council directed staff to insert the name of Sherry Andrews into bylaw 73-24.
Okay, thank you. Mover and seconder, Councillor, Deputy Mayor Barber and Councillor Desrosiers. Any questions, comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. A motion to adjourn.
Just the bylaw.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have a bylaw.
That council inserts the name of Sherry Andrews into bylaw 73-24, and that council gives 3 readings to and approves bylaw 73-24 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-22 being a bylaw to make the necessary council and citizen appointments to committees and boards, the police service board.
Okay, mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Van Raes. All those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn.
And that council now adjourn at 9:39 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Van Raes, Councillor Oslach, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.